morning, Central Texas. Welcome to Kids Community Connections, 103.1 Kids FM. I'm Phyllis Jones, your host for this morning. And you know what? I don't like the weather. I need my 45 degrees back quick. I'm feeling the need to have just 45 degrees. Then, I'll be a little cooler and I can breathe and live. But, it can even snow for me and I'll be happy. I'll even take some snow. Forget that. Texas doesn't know what snow is, so we'll just go to 45 degrees weather. Today I was talking to a young man that I'm not going to say I watched him grow up, but I kind of did watch him grow up. And, it's hard to see sometimes the people that you see from high school grow up and you wonder and you realize that they're really grown. So it makes you feel like you're older, but I'm not going to say I did. I didn't get older. He did. But he's also grown up to be not just grew up and just hang out. He's grown up and he's made some footprints. And it's very important that when I say out, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, when African-American males make a footprint, rather than let the footprint be on them, they make the footprint. And Eric has made some footprints. So good morning, Eric. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm all right. How are you today?
I'm doing good. And he got all his bass in his voice. He didn't have it back then. But Eric's going to talk to us about education. School is starting on Monday morning. All the children will be back. The college kids have already been back. And parents, you think it's time to relax, but Eric is going to let us know, nope, it's not time to relax. It's time for parents to work and the kids to work. So, Eric, let's start with elementary school. Okay. The basics of elementary school. We know we send our kids to school every day, and we expect that to be it. Is that it?
That's not it.
Uh-oh. Y'all heard that, right? Y'all got pencil and paper. So I have to do more than send my kid to school, right, and depend on the school system to fully do their job?
Right.
So from elementary school, what should a parent be doing?
First thing you need to do is to visit the administration building.
Oh.
And you go to the administration building and pick up packets for the year. One thing I would suggest picking up would be your rule book, your guidelines for the district. And lots of you have reading clubs. You'll read fiction, novels, all types of things, but won't read the rules and guidelines for the school district. So I would recommend that parents create a reading club for district literature and read from beginning to end what it is that you and your child are responsible for doing and what the district's responsibility is to you. So go to the administration building, which is located off of W.S. Young if you're in the Killeen Independent School District. Request those documents, and I would also suggest at some point visiting with the teachers at the school that your child attends. If they're in elementary school or they're at the primary level, you'll likely have one syllabus because the child isn't moving from class to class. But as the child progresses and makes it to junior high school or middle school, then on to high school, you'll need the syllabi for the different classes. And you should maintain a folder of those syllabi so that you can know exactly what's going on in the classroom in terms of things that the child is learning, behavior management and expectations, academic opportunities, extracurricular activities that are academic first, then extracurricular activities that are athletic, because you can't get to the athletic part if you don't get past the academic part. But I won't jump to that. I'll let you.
First of all, I need you to explain what the syllabus is, because you have a lot of parents who have no clue what you just said.
Okay. The syllabus is the way that your child instructor or teacher manages the classroom. It is all of the things that will take place in that classroom during a given term or a semester. It will give you the grade weight or percentage for each one of the quizzes and tests that your child will take. It will tell you what the assignments are. It will tell you what the goals, objectives, and expectations are for that teacher, for that subject. It may even mention what the sort of the state standards are in terms of what needs to be accomplished if it's one of the core courses. It also locates the child. It tells you the name of the teacher. It gives you the classroom number. It tells you the name of the school. It has everything that you need to be able to track your child from first grade through 12th grade. And you should keep these syllabi, so that's the plural of syllabus, more than one, in a folder. So this way, when you go in the third or fourth grade and someone asks you a question about your child's learning capacity or what their academic history has been since primary school or since first or second grade, you can take these folders with you and you can say, this was my child's first teacher. Here's the work that my child did. And you have a very clear line from first through 12th grade of how your child has advanced through the ranks or through the grades.
Okay, now you said first grade.
Yeah.
So since you've been in school, I'll let you know that pre-K is your first grade.
The new first grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pre-K was your first grade. So in pre-K, we expect them to know their numbers for breakfast and lunch, to punch them in to get their food. They go to computer class. They go to PE. They learn their name. So they learn all the stuff you learned in first grade, they learned in pre-K.
Well, we learned that in pre-K.
Yeah.
I mean, we did kindergarten.
Yeah.
We had kindergarten. Pre-K was something different, but we did have kindergarten. But you were expected to know those things then.
Yeah.
You know, but it started at home. We started with flashcards. So we had flashcards. Your parents used flashcards. Your grandparents used flashcards. My cousins made charts. I had multiplication charts made out of poster boards that you picked up at Woolworths back then, but now you go to Walmart. And these are projects that the family can do together. You know, do your chart 1 to 10 on the what would be your x-axis if you're taking geometry eventually, and then 1 to 10 up and down on your y-axis, right? And then all your numbers in between, and you put one finger at the top and one finger down the side, and you run them together until you get to the answer. Those are things that you can take control of and do at home before you send the child to school. Your child does not have to be going to the 6th grade for you to begin teaching algebra, geometry, trig, calculus. You can start early, you know. So
Okay, so let's go to 3rd grade.
okay.
Okay, 3rd grade is the first time the kids see the TEKS test, correct? Yet most schools don't use the 3rd grade TEKS book. So they don't use it. They use a weekly reader. Mm-hmm. There's a TEKS book, but they use a weekly reader, USA Today, newspaper, whatever they find. Mm-hmm. And we also know that 3rd grade sets how many prisons we're going to build. Kind of sets the tone because your kid is judged at 3rd grade. Their course of learning to study and all that is in 3rd grade. So if they're not learning to do that in 3rd grade because they're not studying the TEKS books, what do you recommend the parent to do? Because they're not getting that, especially African American kids, not getting any of that in there.
Visit the administration building. Again, it goes back to the administration building. Somewhere in a box in your school, in your child's school, there are old copies of the books, the preparation manuals.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You have to take your child's education seriously. Whether it's the manual that the teacher threw out that was the teacher's guide, that's not secret information. It's not private information. This is what your child is learning. Ask for a copy, take it home, take it to your reading group that you're going to start, intrafamilial reading group within your family or between friends, and read it from front to back. Teach your child everything that is in that book. So by the time your child reaches the 3rd grade, he or she is prepared for the test. It's simple.
Okay.
And if you have a deficiency as a parent in reading, writing, or calculating, seek the assistance of a friend, of a family member, of a community member, of someone within the school district. They have tutors. They have government funding to assist communities, to assist the parents of their children or the children who are attending their schools. Seek that assistance to help you with your deficiency so you can help the child and at the same time help yourself.
Okay, we went back to learning styles. We were big on that for a while in school because everybody needed to learn their learning style. Such as me, I'm a tactile learner. You could talk all day and I'll forget what you said. If you give me something to hold, I got it. Yet it's not directed to be done in school. So should the parent know their kid's learning style?
You should. You should know if you have an auditory learner, that's a child who learns by listening. You should know if you have a visual learner, a child who learns by seeing things, a tactile learner who touches things. You have a touchy-feely kid who's always crumbling up paper or holding markers, and maybe you have a visual and tactile learner who likes to see colors, bright colors, shapes, objects. It is important to know your child's learning style and whether your child has a combination of learning styles. I work with athletes, and you cannot treat each athlete the same in terms of what you give them for training. You must give each athlete something that is specific to his or her learning style. So if you have a right brain learner who's creative, artistic, out of the box, right? They don't think inside of the parameters and structures that are usually set for them. Or if you have a left brain learner who's more regimented, more structured, likes detail, likes instructions, you need to know that. And then on top of that, you need to know what? Auditory, visual, tactile. So there are things about your child that you need to learn instead of just thinking this child is hyper all the time, this child is bad, this child misbehaves, don't go in there misbehaving for the teacher. Maybe it's a learning style difference. And if the teacher is not able to pick up on that learning style difference and you're not able to pick up on that learning style difference, you need to go to someone. Where do we go to? The administration building, to identify where our resources are within the district and within the state to figure out how to make your child's learning experience the best experience. Take a positive attitude into the learning environment. Don't seek negativity. Seek the positive.
So the parents need to learn their learning style also so they can communicate with their child.
Yeah.
Because most parents, if you ask them, they don't know.
They don't know their learning style. They don't know, they haven't been assessed.
Right.
And that is a good thing to know. What is your learning? Because that may be part of the conflict sometimes between the parent and the child. Why the child is getting on your nerves, because you have different learning styles yourselves and you don't know what your learning style is. So assess yourself, do a self-assessment, or have someone who's a professional assess you, have the child assessed, figure it out, find out how to make your styles complementary to one another so that you can get the most out of your child in these developmental stages or at these developmental stages.
Okay, now I'm going to say something that's going to make Eric jump out of his chair, but he'll be back. He'll be all right. We're going to go to fifth grade TEKS, and we're going to use KISD. A couple other districts use the same book too. It's made by Pearson's. In Pearson's fifth grade TEKS book, I read it, and if it was my book, I would have burnt it, but it wasn't mine. It was the school, so I had to give it back. So I read the fifth grade TEKS because what I'm working on now is going to the State Board of Education next year, and we need to correct the social studies part of the TEKS. Now, in the social studies TEKS, it says that Africans lived in a colony And they were happy in the colony until one of them was sold. That's what it teaches our children. And the Pearsons teach social studies book. It also says in that book that there was a triangular trade. So they left the one word out of there that changed the whole thing. Now, I've got a child in fifth. Let's just say I have a child in fifth grade, and this is what their book is saying. What should I do as a parent? Because right now he's learning the wrong African American history. So, well, as a parent, what should I do?
The first thing you should do is be sure that your child knows American history, and in knowing American history, you're going to learn everything that comes along with it. That's number one. So we don't need to compartmentalize or balkanize the history, because when you teach one piece of it, it's connected to everything else. And if you teach it correctly, then you get a child who is knowledgeable when he or she goes into the classroom and can speak to all of the history. So the one thing you can do is summer enrichment. You have 12 weeks during the summer. You have Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, you have spring break to do enrichment with your child. One place that you can start is, I tell people this, start where you stand, do your own family's history. Get your child into reviewing primary source documents. One of the great things about living in the 21st century that's very different from the 20th century, which was so far past in the 1990s, is that you have access to all of these digital records. You have access to the Library of Congress online. You have access to digital records and repositories at colleges and universities across the world. We live in a military community here, and we have people from everywhere. So there's no excuse not to take advantage of being a student of world history. So start with yourself, then branch out and see how you and who you are and your family connects to everyone else. That's your first exercise in teaching your child a history that is substantive, meaningful, and produces something inside of the classroom that can counter those narratives that are incomplete and destructive.
Okay, so parents, y'all got that right.
And I'm a history major,
that's
by
why,
the way. So people don't just think
that's why I gave that
19th, yeah, 19th and 20th century intellectual and cultural history, and I have a degree from Baylor, so I'm not just making up something. So I'm a real history major. Okay.
So should also the parents read that book? I mean, if they know their kid's going to take a test from a book, should the parents go and get that book and also read it?
Yes.
From beginning to end to see what their child is going to be tested on, what they're learning, and where that book is. You know, where that book in history, where does that book place itself?
The parents should read it, but you know, in that case, it's not just enough to read it. We have some excellent history instructors here at Tarleton, right. Central Texas College. Enroll in classes. You know, we have a lot of military families here. We have a lot of people who have access to free education because of their service to this country. And if you're not using it, allow a family member to use that. Forward yourself in your education so that you can become the teacher. You can become your child's first teacher, or enable somebody within your family, or either enable or encourage someone within your family to become that teacher. I'm not saying to take all responsibility away from the teacher in the classroom, because you pay taxes and they have a responsibility to teach right and accurate information, but accept some of the license, authority, and agency in this, and do for your child or the child that you're the guardian of what it is that needs to be done to help them to be productive scholars. So enroll in a class, take a 3 credit hour class, audit a class. If you can't afford the class, send an email to one of the professors at CTC, Tarleton, Texas A&M, Central Texas, and ask them, may I audit your class? What is the formal procedure for being able to audit your class? Just to sit there. When I say that, I mean going in as a non-graded person who sits in the class, maybe at the back or whatever. You take your notebook in, ask the professor, can I record the class? Maybe they will or won't, allow you to do that, permit you to do that. But you go in, you take notes, and become knowledgeable about different areas of history. So you can take African history, you can take European history, you can take the history of Asia and the subcontinent, you can take U.S. history from the colonial period to 1877 to present. You can take all of these classes and you can go home and create your own curriculum and learning environment for these kids. So when they go in there, they're ready. And it's just history across the board. We don't have to compartmentalize it. We don't have to balkanize, because the history is all connected. One piece of it's connected to the other piece. That's all you have to do is just be proactive.
Okay, so we're going to go back. Now, I'll say when I grew up and was going to school, when I got home, there wasn't just home. I had to first go home, and we had to quote unquote change our school clothes to play clothes. That was a whole nother issue that people don't understand today, but we did. We had to do that. But also we had to do our homework first. After homework, we had to study. And the study wasn't study what was in school. Study was studying from what your parents had you studying at home. And then we can go out and play. But we had to do all those things first before we went out and play. But then when I say started in like the 80s, that dropped off. It dropped off. Parents was just started sending their kids to school, and the school was doing whatever. And I know when my youngest child, her, when she was going to school, we used to get letters saying, why she's excelling here and excelling there. And I was like, oh, because she has homework at home. And they would say, well, we didn't send it. I'm like, you don't have to. We did it, but now we're finding more and more that's dropping off. Parents aren't doing that anymore. So I don't know when that changed, when that changed where parents just now send their kid to school and say, okay, you got them.
Well, it probably changed with the demands that parents had. Well, it probably changed with the market. I mean, you had a lot of people who, for the first time, your generation is the generation of, I'm going to be nice about this now, we're going to just say the generation of what they refer to as the Cultural Revolution. Now, you know which period and time that was, okay?
Yes.
So people, the way that historians divide this up is we call that the generation of the Cultural Revolution. I'm not going to call any specific numbers right now, but she knows when that took place.
Yeah.
Okay, so that generation, for the first time, had access to things that its parents and grandparents, many of whom were sharecroppers at the turn of the 20th century, did not have access to. So, and who moved northward with the Great Migration, because you did mention that you went to Detroit, and many people from Detroit came up from Mississippi and Alabama. They followed the train routes that went directly to a major city because that's where the jobs and the opportunities were. So one of the things that happened, to return to your question about how is it that the children sort of became neglected and the parents weren't giving them things to do at home and sending them to school to be prepared, is that you had this shift where after that period in time, the Cultural Revolution, where people went increasingly into colleges, became college educated. Now you had two people in a family who had an opportunity to enter the workforce. Increasingly, women went into the workforce during that period of time too, whereas prior to that Cultural Revolution, that was not necessarily one of the things that was open. Those doors of opportunity were not open to women. So you had the glass ceilings, and many of those glass ceilings were sort of shattered. Now, that having been said, you had fewer children being born to families. You think back to your grandparents, some of them had 10, and that's being nice, 11, 14, 21 kids. But that was necessary because they lived an agrarian lifestyle and they needed hands to work and to do things. Once we shifted after World War II, right, a lot of people left that agrarian lifestyle and they went to the city. Okay, so that would have been the baby boomer generation. That's the generation that you're born in. I still haven't called any numbers. See how I do that real nicely, real smooth with that. So you're born in that generation, and then your children, then you're there, you're at the sort of apex or height of of your youth during that cultural revolution, and you're able to take advantage of all of those things that your grandparents and parents were not able to have access to and take advantage of. And when you do that, then you enter into a world, a market, an economy where you're an earner, and you can now send your kid off for someone else to learn, which you didn't do. You said you still took the time to, you invested time in your daughter's learning. And I know your daughter, and she's very learned. She's a very learned and lettered young woman. So the thing is that a lot of people, when they had that opportunity to make that money, there was a sacrifice in there. So you make the money, you can provide, in the 80s, that generation of decadence, right? You buy you can have the VHS recorder. See, people don't know what I'm talking about. All the big stereo with the dub system on it, so you can record the radio station, and splice and all that. And you can have all the accoutrements that come with being an earner, having two earners as opposed to having one, or even being a woman who's empowered to earn now, or where you didn't have that before. So now you have to work. Somebody has to take care of the kids. So then you have the latchkey programs, all those different programs that they had after school that came up. And you had the Boys and Girls Club was really big back then, because after school you could go there, wait till your parents got off, and the Boys and Girls Club would close around 6. That gave you enough time to get off of work, get some food. McDonald's, people switched to fast food culture. That was huge, and that wasn't necessarily a big, huge thing in the period of time. I almost slipped there. In the period of time you were coming up, right? So, and then you get into all these other issues. I mean, we get into health issues in terms of how we eat and what it does to us, and the homes that you move into when you have more money are smaller in space than the agrarian areas that you grew up in, where you could sort of roam free, walk, more walking and exercise, and you're not getting that. So then you have obesity, then you have health problems, then you have things that impact and affect the child's learning. So children may go to school with all of these other issues that they're being picked on for, or that are impacting their cognitive abilities, that are sort of clouding and muddling how they think or how they process information. And you, not you particularly, you general, have to be aware of this. You have to be cognizant of this, and you have to take proactive measures to counteract that, and to make some difference, like I said before, to make sure that the kid has the best experience, make sure all of those things are in line. And what do you do? Because there's someone here, I'm sure, who's listening, who's saying, well, all of that sounds easy. It sounds, that's, you say it like it could be done just easily with no problems. But if you're a person who's living on the other end of the socioeconomic spectrum, where you're struggling, because for whatever reason, who knows what or which hardships you've gone through to be in that position, there's still help out there. If you have a phone and you're struggling, you still have access to all of that content and knowledge that could transform your child's life. There are grants, and if you're also in that position, go to the district. You have the free meals program. You have free meals for people who are on the other end of the socioeconomic spectrum, right? And you have, or the lower end of the rung of the socioeconomic ladder, because we usually refer to it as a ladder, right? So you can look into the free lunch programs. You can look into the tutoring programs that are available for your kids. You can also be proactive, and you may not have a ride to get there, but if you have that phone, you can look up your school district. So wherever you're listening to this from, look up your school district, call your school district, ask them to mail something directly to you. Tell them, I don't have a way to get there, but the bus picks my child up. And then you can make some sort of pact with the bus driver where you're sending things back and forth if you don't have a car to get to the school. And you just have to create alliances that at the end of the day serve your child and then your community's best interests or have your community's best interests in mind and heart.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question, but we're gonna go on the break so you can answer it when we come back. Is used to be, and it's not impossible. After school, you can go to your church for after school study, after school snack. They provided tutoring and mentoring for you, and that fell off. So we're gonna take a break and come right back, and Eric will answer that question.